right, let's welcome Bayo Atoyebe, who is right here with us to do the newspaper review segment. Bayo, good to see you. How did you get here?
Good morning, Claire. Well, I escaped the heavy torrential rain this morning, narrowly to get here. You know, because some days ago we were saying the rain was just drizzling like it often is in Port Harcourt and Warri, just mild, but now it has come up heavily. We were saying August break had come up in June, but now it's July torrential, very heavy.
I'll just share with you how sleepy I am.
Yes. Good morning, Kisley.
Yeah, Bayo, good to see you. I mean,
how's the rain in your area?
It's all about the, I imagine, all about the capital city, not necessarily the FCT. It's a very wet morning, and the conditions are not driver friendly at all. I mean, you have to be crawling virtually on the way to get to the office. I was going to say that it's raining all over the world. It's that record by I don't know, it's R&B.
Tyron Davis?
No, not Tyron Davis. It's like it's raining all over the world.
Yes, I think it's
Randy Crawford. Randy Crawford sang that. I feel like, it's raining all over the world. Yes,
but it's not.
The one party was in Georgia. That's it was Georgia and the United States. And he said, look, I feel like it's raining all over the world.
I'm trying to remember the lyrics too. Yes, I'm trying to remember the lyrics. But it's not raining in the UK.
And the rain is affecting.
It's not raining in the UK. In parts of the UK.
Have just one newspaper that came in.
I think the vendors, of course, since they use their scooters, you can't be out on the scooter on this time because the visibility is pretty low, and then you get drenched. And once the papers are drenched, it loses value. But of course, we have some of the headlines from the internet, at least some of the ones we review from time to time. I'll have the Punch here. That's on the internet, and it says JAMB approves cutoff marks for varsities and polytechnics. That's the story is saying in part that the approval, of course, came yesterday at the policy meeting. So it's 140 approved for the universities. That's the cutoff mark for this year. You have other details that are provided in the reports, as I just indicated. That's from the Punch newspaper. Then Punch is also saying power generation crashed to 3 megawatts. Federal government begins probe. Well, it will say that's the collapse of the national grid. I recall that when we had some back-to-back incidents of the collapse of the national grid, we had a conversation on the issue here, and an official of the TCN, in fact 2 of them, were out of guests on that occasion, and one of them who is in charge of the National Switch Center at Oshobo was here, and they did say that it was not the correct situation, that at that time power generation dropped to 9 megawatts, because that was the reported story at the time, that it's not possible for power to dip to just 9 megawatts. Yes, the grid could be affected, but certainly not power generation and the ability to route it across the country. That's one of that story there. Revenue falls by 1.89 trillion naira. Nigerians face tougher times. Obviously, that's the lead story online for the Punch newspaper. According to the paper, it's saying that the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, released the 4-month fiscal report on the economy. There was a public consultation on the 2023-25 medium-term expenditure framework. So that's revenue dipping, and I'm sure that Claire, you have other perspectives on that story with regard to what needs to be done in terms of the economy going forward. That said, subsidy will be included, and we already read that in our bulletin, will be included in the medium-term expenditure framework for 2023 to 2025. That's for that. Then, of course, ban on mining will worsen insecurity. Miners tell federal government. That's the story that I believe that you also have.
Yes, I have. I have that story. So let me start with it. It's not the lead story on the Friday Al Jazeera, but it enjoys an inside page 4. It says terror attacks, FG to ban motorcycles and mining nationwide. FG to ban motorcycles and mining nationwide. And just beneath that story, you'll find on page 12, fuel subsidy to gulp 6.72 trillion in 2023 amid uncertainties. Fuel subsidy to gulp 6.72 trillion in 2023 amid uncertainties. Now, just the story leading those reports. India selects second female president. I need to read this again. India selects second female president, Draupadi Murmu. Of course, the story of that is on page 4. The lead story on the front page of the Friday Al Jazeera: alleged perjury, court okays Tinubu's trial. You can follow that up on page 8. Now, on the other side of the paper, you find Imo massacre. IPOB declares Ibubago commander wanted. Others offers cash reward for arrest. Now, ASU strike is on page 9. It's our right to protest, NLC tells Minister of Information Lai Mohammed. And reps put on hold privatization of power plants. Details of that on page 13. And just beneath, below the name caption, 109 billion naira fraud. EFCC to arraign former accountant general and others Friday, July 22. That's precisely today. So that's the outlook on the front page of the Al Jazeera. Mm-hmm. But I just also like to say, I should have started on this note, of course, that Nigeria's Azizat Oshoala was crowned yesterday as the best African female footballer of the year. Yes, she was the only Nigerian who, I think she was the only Nigerian who got an award.
Yes, I know that, Barrow, you want to comment there. If we could just take a couple of other headlines from the Nation Online. The online arrangement, of course, sometimes is different from the physical paper. The Nation Online says federal government considers fresh measures to end terrorism. That's what you were reading in terms of banning motorcycles, as well as, of course, banning the use of motorcycles countrywide. Now, ASU strike, 560 billion naira more needed to pay varsity teachers. That's what the Nation is reporting on one of its pages. It says 560 billion naira more needed to pay varsity teachers. Let's say the paper is quoting a top government source in Abuja, and that the source, according to the paper, is privy to the renewed negotiations between the government and the university-based unions. The other story I read earlier has to do with the economy, and that this report about the federal government spending 6.72 trillion naira on subsidy next year, according to the Honorable Minister of Finance. That's what we have there from the Nation newspaper. Vanguard very quickly. Kaduna shut school over alleged defilement of minor. Again, it's one of those recurrent stories that we have to deal with precisely on account of the fact that the stories are unpalatable. So, Barrow, let's kick off with some of the stories that we have and others that we might have.
Let's start with the story about the suspended Accountant General of the Federation. Already introduced, is expected in court today with 3 orders, and specifically one of the charges that the EFCC has preferred is for acceptance of 15.13 billion allegedly said to be bribed to fast-track the payment of 13% derivation. The states that were entitled to derivation were expecting to be paid 450.6 billion, and they had to pay that bribe to the tune of what the EFCC has alleging as bribe before they could be paid the derivative, which is a constitutional requirement in the year 2021. And on the side of the fact that no matter how fast and how long you try to run, the long arm of the law will always catch up with you. 2 Kuje escapees have been arrested. One was arrested by the Adamawa Police Command. He was arrested while trying to find his way back to his home in Bama. He is a 23-year-old Abubakar Muhammad who was facing trial for terrorism trial. The second that was arrested is one Jude, who was arrested in Makurdi. He was arrested in Urukum area. Again, intelligence helped in tracing the guy, and the police swarmed on him and arrested the escapee known as Igwe Jude. He too was facing a trial of culpable homicide involving his girlfriend. The other one is Adama Police Command also succeeded in arresting a band of criminals, 12 suspects for kidnapping and armed robbery. It's on the sad note, in Lagos, a secondary school girl who had just completed her school start examination was going home, and she was forcefully abducted into a car, taken to a place, drugged, and gang raped by 5 guys for a period of 5 days. 4 guys for over a period of 5 days. But luckily, a man who saw the car now sent the number of the car and the area they drove into to the parents of the girl when they raised the alarm. Luckily, one of them has been caught, and another person that has been caught is a classmate of the student. And the poor girl was drugged and serially raped for over a period of 4 days. But the long arm of the law has also cut on it. But the editorial we have, the Al Jazeera, is talking about the ban on motorcycle and particularly
yes, mining and motorcycles.
Yes.
I just wanted, but we need to clarify this. You know, I read the story from the Punch online,
yes,
with regard to JAMB and other stakeholders setting the cutoff mark. I think that the Punch got it wrong in their online edition. They said that varsities cut off 140, which is correct. Colleges of Education and Polytechnics, Punch Online is reporting 120. That's not correct. But the cutoff of colleges of education and polytechnics is 100. Okay. And universities is 140. Vanguard Online has the correct. I believe that they can always, the Punch can always correct that, get their stories right usually.
Also, JAMB clarified that universities are free to set up their own cutoff mark, internal cutoff mark, say 220, but by law, they cannot fall below the cutoff mark provided by JAMB.
And just as we're still, talking about JAMB, on the inside page of the Al Jazeera, we may not see it. It says NABT, that's a NAPTEP, National Business and Technical Education Board.
Yes.
No longer recognized for direct entry. That's JAMB. So if you have obtained a direct entry certificate from this institution, the JAMB registrar, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, says it is no longer tenable. But those who have already gotten that, prior to this publication, will be able to use it.
That's the A-level, advanced level certificates being awarded by NAPTEP. That's the clarification that was made yesterday. There was a policy meeting. It's not just JAMB speaking. You had all the stakeholders there, the heads of tertiary institutions, as well as, of course, the meeting was presided over by the chairman, who is the Honorable Minister of Education. And the Honorable Minister of Education was also there, and heads of a number of education parastatals were also present. NUC was there, National Commission on Colleges of Education also there, and all that. So I think this clarification is important. The data in terms of the scores for this year, you will find in the papers with regard to who scored what between 400 and below, but as clarified, 140 for universities is the minimum. No university can admit. But if a university has already, before the meeting, set its own cutoff at 200, as most federal universities normally would do, 200, then you cannot also go below that 200 as your cutoff. Pan Atlantic University, for instance, in Lagos, set its own cutoff at 220. So that 220 stays for Pan Atlantic University. For all others who are between that 220 and 140, you have a band within which to process admission of students.
We wind up the success of Azizat Oshuala is worth commending. It is her 5th time of winning the African Women Football Award. This time around, she beat the Cameroonian, what's her name now, Ajara Unjuo of Cameroon, as well as the Zambian Grace Inchanga to cling it. For the male side, it was Sadio Mane who beat Mendy, the Chelsea goalkeeper, and Mo Salah to win the African Footballer of the Year, the second time now.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting development. But the proposal by the federal government as one of a number of measures to tackle banditry, terrorism, kidnapping, to say we're going to place a ban on mining and motorcycles. All right, I imagine, for instance, that there has been a review of the earlier ban on mining in Zamfara. If you recall, about 4 years or so ago, there was a ban placed on mining activities in Zamfara. There was also a no-fly zone, that was imposed on Zamfara. So if there's been an evaluation of those measures and the enforcement, what went right, what went wrong. That's one leg. Second leg would also be, we've talked about, and security experts have also analyzed extensively, the so-called ungoverned spaces. What are we doing to ensure that those spaces are better governed? Because motorcycles are two-wheelers. There are parts of the country where they are very useful in the rural communities. People use them to go to the market, they use them to go to the farms. If you impose a ban on that, how is that going to affect commerce? How is that going to affect movement in general? I think that's
yes. And I think they would have their parameters by implementation.
Using commercial motorcycles as for commercial purposes came to fill a void in transportation that was not there. And unless you provide a means of filling that void, there will be a challenge. For instance, when Lagos came with its own now, they brought in these smaller vehicles, which they said they could use within those areas where the motorcycles were serving. Already, there's a youth group in Kaduna that has raised an alarm that 65% of those of the youths are unemployed, and many of the motorcycle riders depend on this. And if you ban it, the tendency is that you are driving them into the doorstep of being recruited by these terrorists.
Thank you. Thank you. Developing stories that, of course, we will stay with and watch how it unfolds. Bayo, thank you once again. It's a Friday. I do have. I'm looking for a good adjective now. A sweet and pleasant weekend.
Thank you.
All right. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Right, welcome back. If you're watching, you're on to Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service this Friday, and today we're reviewing, of course, the 2022 Hajj, what went on, what went wrong, why, and what could have been done that was not done. Let's listen into a background report put together by our correspondent, Ekene Ntulue, just for the starters.
The annual Islamic pilgrimage exercise to Saudi Arabia, known as Hajj, is the fifth pillar of Islam and is regarded as the holiest time of the year in Islamic calendar. For Muslims, it is an obligatory exercise carried out at least once in a lifetime. About 43,000 Nigerian Muslims were registered to perform this year's Hajj, with transportation of pilgrims concluded by 27th June. The hurdles experienced this year left many Nigerian pilgrims stranded, along with other constraints that resulted to several challenges. 13 flights were cancelled, with 57 delayed takeoffs. There were also issues of inability of some state pilgrims boards to secure basic travel allowance for pilgrims, insufficient funds for visas, as well as unavailability of PCR test results. These challenges made the National Hajj Commission seek extension of the arrival date to the Holy Land. The General Authority for Civil Aviation in Saudi Arabia granted the request, extending landing permits of Nigerian Hajj carriers from July 4 to July 6th. The extension was also not enough, and by the time Hajj was over, about 1,500 intending pilgrims were not able to make it to the Holy Land. There were also issues of welfare, with Nigerian pilgrims complaining of late and substandard meals served at Muna and Medina. 4 Nigerians were reported to have died in Hajj this year. However, for the remaining pilgrims who were able to stand at Mount Arafat, it was a fulfillment of the greatest desire of all Muslims, with the belief in forgiveness of sin. With hindsight at the 2022 Hajj, many pilgrims believe the preparation could have been better. On this episode of Good Morning Nigeria, guests shall be reviewing the 2022 Hajj exercise.
All right, thank you very much, Chekere Ndule, for that background. With us in the studios to discuss issues around the Hajj exercise, let's welcome Ustaz Ahmed Murtala Wase. He is Director of Research at the Miraj Foundation. Ustaz Ahmed, pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you for having me.
Also here with us in the studios is Ustaz Abu Pen Abdul, founder Darul Tawheed Islamic Center. Glad to have you this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, we also have, all right, we have, okay, let's welcome both Ustaz here in the studio, Ustaz Abuja Penabdo. Thank you very much for joining us, and of course, Ustaz Ahmed Wase, thank you very much for joining us. So let's begin by evaluating this year's 2022 Hajj operations, and I will start with Ustaz Wase. Yes, so from your perspective, yes, how did it go?
Yeah, okay. As Alhamdulillah, Assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. 2022 Hajj operation is, according to the chairman of NAHCON, Ustaz Hafizullah, is a crash program. Normally, at the beginning of Hajj operations, there will be a memorandum of understanding between Saudi government and Nigerian government. But this time around, because the announcement of the operation came very late in March, this was unable to be done. So it's considered as a crash program.
As a crash program.
Yes, as a crashed program. So it came in very late during Ramadan, and normally it will take about 6 months preparation to overcome some of the challenges that will be. But this time around, it came with so many challenges. I would like to look at a few of them that are of significance, which I think our Nigerian government authority, especially agencies that concerns with handling these issues, can do better in 2023 operations. I will first look at the issue of delay in the issuance of visa, which many will look at it as a problem from Saudi government, but we also have our own part of the problem. Before you can get visa, you need to have passport. Before you can be issued visa. In our own case, we need to really work on this. There's a sister agency of NTA, National Orientation Agency, in collaboration with Immigration Service, and fortunately these two agencies, they have broad presence across the country. They are present in 774 local governments of Nigeria. You need to create awareness, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, where people only go for passport. More than 90% of people that acquire passport in northern part of Nigeria, they go for it during pilgrimage, when they are going for Umrah or Hajj. So let there be wider awareness at the local level that people who have the intention to go for Hajj operation or Umrah should have obtained the Nigerian passport on time. And I think because Hajj is part of the 5 pillars of Islam, so every Muslim in the northern part of Nigeria or the whole country should obtain the Nigerian passport in anticipation of attending the Hajj. So if we do that, I think we are going to solve that problem. We will no longer be having unnecessary embarrassments on the country.
Okay, let's pause you, because you've just given us the crux of our conversation. You've touched on but you have described the 2022 Hajj operation as a crash. You know what students say that it was a crash program.
Exactly.
Due to the later information that came, and of course you have also put some blame on our own preparations towards it. So, Ustaz Abdul Penabdo, do you agree that it's a crash operation?
Yeah, I think
it is qualified to be termed as a crash operation, even though we are supposed to prepare beforehand. But why I will agree with the description of it being a crash operation is simply because of a new platform that was launched by the Saudi government on how to process the Hajj the visa and every other thing that has to do with the Hajj operation. So simply because of that, because the platform was launched lately and people were introduced to it lately, so I would term it as the reason why the description of it being a crash program will be vaguely accepted. Why I'm trying to choose my words is simply because as a body that is charged with the responsibility of organizing Hajj pilgrimage for the citizens of Nigeria, you should always be ahead of time. You should always anticipate and have some sort of a buffer zone that you can latch onto in case of any unforeseen circumstances. And then the platform that was launched, the e-platform that was launched, again, I think it's not only peculiar to Nigeria, Europe, American, Asian, a lot of countries, a lot of nations were affected by this. I know a lot of people couldn't make it to this Hajj simply because of this sudden launch of the new platform, and then people were not sufficiently given time to acquaint themselves with it. But be it as it may, I think even with the short notice and everything, we could have done better. That's simply my observation. We could have done better. We could have, that is what it's, desperate situations call for desperate solutions.
Really.
So you need to think out of the box to come up with ways that, okay, this is a crash program. The platform was launched lately. We were introduced to it lately. What does it take for us to, the little time that we have, even if it means working around the clock? May Allah bless them. I know a lot of people have done a lot of things to ensure that even those that were elected were done. I was there with Alhaji Zikrullah the day he left, because I went for Hajj also. So I was there, I saw what happened, and then the chaos that what that happened at the airport that very night that he left, when people were saying, you are not going to leave us, we paid money, and then you can't just leave and then keep us here without having anyone to communicate with. I know
Ordinarily, because these are the technical parts we will have to examine in greater detail. But ordinarily, he mentioned about 6 months, but you are saying, as a Muslim who anticipates, performing the pilgrimage, and as a body that organizes for it, you should be prepared. How long does it take to be really prepared to embark on a pilgrimage?
Well, it takes
what are the nitty-gritties?
It takes a year. I'll give you an example of the Saudi government. Immediately they finish Hajj operation like this 2022, they embark on 2023 preparation. That's how prepared they are. They start immediately, so it will never come as a crash program. They look at, and the best way to prepare is to have a feedback. What were the challenges faced? How can we augment this? How can we improve? They start immediately. Before we left Saudi last week, there were people at the airport asking us questions, souvenirs, questions about the Hajj, so that they can improve. They are gathering information, data, so that they can process it and then come up with a better solution. I think that is what we need. We shouldn't wait till when it's the season of Hajj, and that's the problem. Our Hajj operation begins when is the season of Hajj, and there is no way we can ever perfect it. We have the whole year to prepare for it.
Isn't it characteristic?
Yeah, but that is it. This is a religious organization. This is a religious thing. We need to be diligent. We can't just have a crash program when it comes to religious issues. This is a responsibility. I saw people shedding tears. I had to comfort some people because they paid money since 2019, 2020, and they couldn't make it.
Exactly.
And then,
how many pilgrims made it to the Hajj this year?
Actually, it's supposed to be 43,000,
Yeah.
but as at the 3rd of July, only 29,000 were lifted to Saudi Arabia.
Conservatively, I
And,
think there were about 5,000 people
left
there.
behind.
Yes.
So that is it.
Yes.
Not 1,005, but
No,
5,000?
I'm not
Yes,
sure about the
exactly.
number.
Yeah, you're right. 1,005 on the 3rd of July. The Nigerian government, NACON, requested for extension,
And that one
and the Saudi government granted extension. So I think we can still look at the weak capacity inside of our airlines. I remember when the airlines that will embark on the Saudi operation were announced, the commissioner for Hajj operation in Saudi, Kano, Muhammad Abba, rejected Azman Airline based on their experience in the past.
Okay, I'm told we have the chairman National Hajj Commission NACON joining us via Zoom from Makkah, and he's Zikrullah Kunle Hassan. If we have him, okay. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Nigerian.
Also, Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq, do we have him? Mohammed, he's the managing director of Conrail Travels and Towers Limited. He also joins us via Zoom from Makkah. Ustaz Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen, Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq, you're a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, and then the chair of NACON, Kunle Hassan, also thanks for being with us. We're just asking questions around the number of Nigerian pilgrims who made it to the Hajj this year. Let's begin with the chairman of NACON. How many Nigerian pilgrims were registered to perform the Hajj, and how many actually performed the Hajj, and what happened?
Well, this year, 43,000 were the number of pilgrims allocated to Nigeria by the Saudi government. Of these 43,008, 9,032 were given to the tour operators, and the balance were to be allocated to the different states in the country. As at the last count, about 31,338 were eliminated from the different states, whereas the private tour operator were not able to lift also about 1,000. That's roughly the statistics. As far as the state is concerned, also about 800 were not able to be airlifted.
So you have about roughly about 1,800.
Yeah, about that.
Okay. So Chair, I would like to, just before we got a connection with you, Ustaz Wase here, and of course Ustaz Pen Abdul, have described or evaluated this year's Hajj in terms of preparation and organization by the body as a crash program, and they've given the reasons. How would you yourself evaluate the entire process this year?
Actually, when we were starting the process this year, we labeled it Emergency Hajj 2022. That's how we called it. We call it Emergency Hajj to all the stakeholders. That's how we saw it. This is because coming out of COVID-19, we're not too sure whether the Saudi government will still allow Hajj to take place for pilgrims outside their country. This is more so because we're prepared for 2021 Hajj, but just a few weeks to Hajj, they announced that nobody will be allowed to come out of their country. Of course, in 2020, we're neck deep in COVID COVID-19 pandemic. So we're not too sure, and every attempt to get information from the kingdom, nothing was coming from the kingdom.
Well, it looks like there's a freeze there on the chairman of NACON's Zoom connection. Let's see if Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq is available to join us via Zoom now. Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq, you're managing director of one of the travel and tour operators. Tell us what your experience was like this year. We understand the tour operators couldn't lift about 1,000 of those who have subscribed their services. What worked this year and what didn't work?
Can I hear you again? I lost connection. I'm just back now.
Going to you, Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, Abubakar Sadiq, I was asking you what went right this year and what also didn't go quite well according to plan, because the chairman of NACON was reporting a moment ago that the tour operators could not airlift about 1,000 pilgrims. And of course, we do know that it was the first time since 2019 that the Saudi authorities were opening their doors to the rest of the world to perform the pilgrimage.
Thank you very much. We were all hoping for the Hajj because we have spent 2 years without the Hajj. So when it came at the last hour because no Hajj in the past was organized in so short a time. The time was at a premium, and that was how we all worked towards Hajj 2022. So many things were actually done, as I think the chairman has mentioned, in an emergency situation. Even the Saudi announcement came very, very late. And that should always be kept in mind when we discuss the issue of Hajj 2022. The people that are on ground, the people that are in the industry, the people that are involved in serving the pilgrims know very well that time was not on our side at all. And as such, we would find a lot of things would not go as planned, especially in terms of airlifting the pilgrims from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. On another part, some tour operators were able to take their pilgrims entirely to Saudi Arabia. My company has no problems at all. We were able to take our pilgrims 100% to Saudi. As I'm talking to you, the pilgrims that came with our arrangement have been in Nigeria since 14th of this month. We do not have a single pilgrim here in Saudi. They have all gone, alhamdulillah. And of course, that has to do with a lot of measures that have been taken, thanks to what NACON has been able to do of making it easy, in spite of the time that was not there to make sure that the visa processes and other details here have been done. Of course, along the way, some companies were not able to access their IBAN, which would, because every payment of services in Saudi has to be done through the bank. And once the money is not there, you are stuck. You cannot do anything. So that was part of what has delayed the process of airlifting some of the pilgrims from tour operators' side, that they were not able to make it to Hajj. Yes.
Okay, just before Kingsley takes his question to the chairman, I also would like you to explain to us, because the reports we have is that many of the pilgrims had their flights cancelled, had visa issues, and I'm wondering what formed what were your responsibilities as a tour, travels and tour guide? What were your own responsibilities, and why were the pilgrims not, airlifted on time?
I think is it for? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, my question is to Ustaz Sadiq Mohammed and the chairman as well. I want you to explain to us what the parameters of your responsibilities to the pilgrims, because we hear many of the pilgrims were stranded at the airports. Many of them also had their visas cancelled, and some were not even airlifted on schedule.
Well, let me first say there's no way visa can be cancelled. So I don't think that information can be accurate. Once visa has been issued, there's no way it could be cancelled.
Right.
We are not in a position to do that. The visa is done electronically, and once that is done, it becomes a visa. It will not be the responsibility of the National Health Commission to therefore cancel any visa. Indeed, there were challenges with airlifting this year, and again, like I did say earlier on, we were able to airlift certainly from National Health Commission over 95% of the pilgrims, in spite of the challenges faced by the airline, some associated with the looking for fuel. Like I give you a scenario, an airline left Mocha, it flew to a state in the north, but it had to go back to Lagos now to get fuel so that it can return to Saudi Arabia. As we know, even the local airlines were battling with the fuel issue. But again, we also have this year the issue of the fact that PCR is mandatory. So in some cases, some get to the airport without the PCR done, or in addition to that, some states were not able to access their BTA fast enough. And in the course of this, a number of flights were lost. Lost in the sense that the plane was there, it could be delayed for a number of hours before they get to be airlifted. I must put it here very quite clearly, it's not the responsibility of the National Health Commission to airlift tour operators. That is not part of our mandate. It is the responsibility of the tour operators to airlift their pilgrims, usually through the scheduled flight and sometimes through the chartered flight. But I must also admit that this year there was a problem which was beyond all of us. About 53 tour operators companies were not able to have their account credited in the kingdom. And once your account, the IBAN account is not credited, you cannot process visa. And once you cannot process visa, it certainly means that you cannot airlift your pilgrim. This is exactly the problem of the tour operator this year, mainly, that their account was not credited. And this is not about NACON. Of course, it's not also about the tour operators. The money was already in the kingdom, but the authority were not able to credit this account. It was beyond National Health Commission. Again, like I said, it was beyond the tour operators. Once the account is not credited, there is no way they can process visa. So some, when the money did not enter the account, at the last minute, did rush to get visa. But at the time they got the visa, there were no more airplane in Nigeria to airlift the pilgrims. That is exactly the main issue with the tour operators. Those who couldn't have their account credited by the authority in Saudi Arabia. The money was there, but their own individual account has to be credited. It was not possible. And there was nothing we could do. Actually, we made a representation, including involving our embassy in the country. But there was nothing anybody could do. They tried severally. They couldn't, it couldn't hit their account. Once it didn't do so, these people were at a loss. So some had to make individual agreement to get their account credited. By the time they were doing so, it was already getting late. Some succeeded, a few did not. Many succeeded actually. So those who at the time their visa came out, there were no more airline. The scheduled airline were no more available. Some actually bought tickets, but at the time their visa were coming out, it was too late. The time for the flight has gone. So that exactly is the reason, specifically why tour operators were affected.
Thank you, Chairman of NACON. Incidentally, Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq is also online, and we would like him to comment on this aspect of the non-credit of their accounts of some of the tour operators. Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq, tell us, what is the contractual obligation between tour operators and the correspondent banks into which these monies are paid? Is there a breach of contract, or what happened? You had no backup for the dollar equivalent of what was supposed to have been credited into your accounts?
You see, a lot of understanding needs to be made as to the modus operandi of Hajj activities in the kingdom. No payment is done directly to any hotel. Everything has to pass through the IBAN. That is through the eHajj portal. And unless you have money on your IBAN, you will not be able to make any transaction. Of course, you can have your agreements with the hotels, you can have your agreements with other service providers, but you will not be able to make any payment unless you have money in the IBAN. NACON has sent money to Saudi Arabia. The money is here, but the money has not gone into the account, and unless you have it in your account, you will not be able to make any transaction. This is only part of the tour operators accounts, because many have got everything in the account. I told you a moment ago that we had everything in our account, and we were able to make our transactions seamlessly, and we were able to use our tickets as scheduled. We did not miss any flight. Everybody came, and everybody has performed their devotions and have returned to Nigeria without any issues. But of course, that does not exclude the other companies that were not able, because of no fault of theirs, and no fault of the Hajj authorities in Nigeria. But the problem has been here in the money going into the IBAN. Unless you have it into the IBAN, you cannot, as I have said repeatedly, do anything as far as the contract of Hajj is concerned. Yes.
Ustaz, well, I'm not quite sure that I understand fully your explanation regarding the money hitting the account in iBank or IBAN before you get credited. Is it that we have forex issues, or the corresponding banks didn't quite tidy all of this up properly? Because if your bank here, say Nigeria, remitted the sums to the receiving bank in Saudi, then there should be no issues. If there were any delays, it probably couldn't be more than maybe a couple of days. What happened? Were there forex issues? Because we do know that other sectors of the economy have been complaining, for instance, about forex shortages.
It has nothing to do with forex. It has nothing to do with CBN in Nigeria or NACON in Nigeria or the tour operator of the states. It is here that the money has not gone into the respective IBAN of the tour operators. Some of them, some, not all. Everything was done except having it into the IBAN. And that agreement, that if there was any agreement to that effect, is NACON's line to be able to explain if there was any agreement that was breached between any of the banks because the tour operators are not in the know of what goes on between the two governments, because NACOM is acting as a government as far as Hajj issues are concerned in Saudi Arabia. So where there is any issue about money going into the IBAN, NACOM will be able to explain what has happened exactly on the issue. I understand that there is the Muassasa that once this money is sent, the Muassasa being the one in charge of Hajj activities of African non-Arab countries would have to ensure that that money is in the IBAN. And I have heard about a series of meetings between NACOM officials and the chair himself with the Muassasa company officials also here in Makkah. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ustaz Mohammed. We'll return to both of you in a short while. Let's also hear from our guests right here in the studio. Let me begin with Ustaz Panabdo. From the reports we gathered, there were as much as 25 flight cancellations, and all arising from, again, according to the reports that we hear, failure of the carrier operators to stick to the flight itinerary schedule. Again, we also understand that they also failed to provide, yes. Can you speak to that so that the chairman would also give us his own side?
Well, from the little I know of that issue, I know there were flights scheduled to airlift pilgrims. And then the simple thing would have been, when the flights are available, those that are cleared to go should go. But you had issue of flights staying, and then getting people to board the airplane becomes an issue because of so many things that you term as Nigerian factor, honestly speaking. Because I was there, I was affected. The day my visa dropped, I went. The international carriers, Emirates, they said the airspace has been closed for them there at Jeddah, so they couldn't airlift anyone. I think it took I think it was when the chairman went, because I was there the day he left for Mecca. I think it was when he left, because I heard him saying he had a meeting then. That very night that he left Nigeria, and then it was in the morning that a circular was sent that there was an extension. That was how we got there. We arrived the day the Hajj rite began. Mm-hmm. I arrived at Saudi the day the Hajj rite began. People had already left Makkah for Mina. Mm-hmm. So what am I saying? Well, I don't want to put all the blame on the carriers, okay. Because I know, for example, the flying house was there. The pilots were complaining that what is this? They have come. Where are the people that are going to? And then even when people are inside the plane to go, there are a lot of challenges, a lot of delays, bureaucratic delays, and other things. I was there. I frequented the airport for 5 days, hoping to get airlifted also. And my wife changed my name to Abdullah Airport. That was how frequent I went to the airport because of this issue. And I know. And then even I know of a friend. This is a personal. I know him. He had his visa, and then it was said that it was cancelled. So this I saw with my eyes. And then you had to go back again for the issuance of the visa. We know of what happened in Kano. It's there. Independent Hajj reporters have it. They have it. You can read. The Daily Trust reported it when there were a lot of fracas and a lot of challenges that were faced. Because I know of people that. In front of me, someone was given his boarding pass. A villager, because they reckoned him as someone that does not know what is happening. In front of me, someone collected. We couldn't know who collected his boarding pass. That okay, there is something that they want to do, only for him to now see that he's no longer going to be allowed to enter the plane. His boarding pass perhaps was cancelled and was issued to another person that came from abroad. I saw this. I wasn't told this. Because I pacified the man. He was crying that they were full. 3 of them have gone in. and then himself, and then there are three other people that were not in their groups that were affected. They had their boarding pass, and then it was because of corruption. It was cancelled, issued to another person. When he was just on the queue, they suffered. Imagine, I saw all of these things. He was crying, and I was saying that as a Muslim, why would you go for Hajj if you have to trample on another person's rights? Someone that has made the deposit. This is reality.
Precisely.
This is reality. This is a spiritual thing. You can't corrupt your way into getting reward.
And this has never happened. I mean, all this has never happened in the history of Hajj, operations.
No, I know because of this. As much as the short notice and the launching of the e-platform and the money hitting, because I understood it's a wallet.
What?
When Hajj Commission here in Nigeria makes the payment to the wallet there in Saudi, and then once it drops, individual operators will now start tapping from the wallet. Once it's dropped, they get their visas.
Okay.
You understand? They get their visas, but even I beg to differ, because I know someone who has a visa, and then he was about to enter Emirates, and then they cross-check and they said that his visa has been cancelled.
Yes.
I know this person. I was together with him at the airport. We traveled together. We stayed at the same tent in Mina.
It's possible.
And he's not just an ordinary person. I know him. His visa was cancelled.
So how then did he make the trip?
He had to go back. He told me he had to go back to Hajj Commission for him to get a reissuance, and someone told him that it was a mistake, that he cancelled it. This happened. So I think we have to be, we can't sugarcoat the truth. And then for us to move ahead, we need to look at all of these things. And for all I care, I'm here representing Islam. For all I care, anything that has to do with the pillar of the religion has to be done the right way.
Right way, really.
Allah sees us. It has to be done the right way. There is no way. Some people had their visas, and then they went to the airport and they say it was cancelled. It happened in Kano.
It's possible for visa to be cancelled, especially with the current trend on the fight against terrorism. And I know there is a platform launched by the United Nations, not the Office of the United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes, software developed by Netherlands government, later handed over to 2018 to United Nations, which has been shared with our member countries. About 46 countries have adopted it now, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Go Travel. It works with the passenger information. It's what we call advanced passenger information. And now there is interactive advanced passenger information. At the time of boarding, immediately the airline issued you ticket. If your name corresponds, it's an artificial intelligence software. If your name corresponds with some identity that attack as criminals or terrorists, your visa will be cancelled automatically.
But this is
not what I'm saying.
I'm saying it is possible. You are aware of that. It is possible when he went back to Nakon verified his identity and another visa was issued. It's an artificial intelligence software. A human being will not be on ground to verify these things. Certain criteria have been put in place that when these characteristics correspond with this, it's possible.
See, I'm aware of that which you are saying.
Yes.
Let us not lump things together. I'm aware of issues where the tour operators.
Yes, sir.
That some tour operators will go and then I even read it as I was coming here. Beforehand, I knew of it, and then as I was coming, I was reading. It was part of it that some tour operators. It was an issue of highest bidder, so to say. Unfortunately, that some people will cancel and then issue to some of this, the tour operators that have more money.
That is possible. That is possible for flight ticket, but for visa, once visa is issued, and then the number of visa issued is not a condition. It's not conditioned on the number of pilgrims to go to Saudi from Nigeria.
Let's clarify. Okay. Let's clarify something again for the benefit of our viewers and for policy consideration purposes. The chairman of NACON, that is the Hajj Commission, it's been with us via Zoom, and one of the tour operators, Sadiq, is still also with us via Zoom. 43,000 slots were provided for Nigerians. And unfortunately, 1,800 could not be airlifted. Now, amongst the 43,000 less 1,800 that made the Hajj, about how many have these complaints? It's possible that probably just, a fingerful of persons that have these complaints. Are we going to escalate this? I'm not saying that those persons didn't have a genuine case, but assuming the percentage wasn't overwhelming or wasn't so challenging, could that then detract from the success of even the emergency operations undertaken for this Hajj?
No, it won't.
Okay. All right. The question goes also to the chairman of the Hajj Commission. You've listened to the comments by our two guests here in the studios as to what they have said. Yes.
Yes, I think in the matter of the visa, we need to get this very clear. If you cancel a visa, that visa is lost. You cannot use it for another person. So, but now again, we also need to get the fact clear. NACON does not issue visa for anyone. So, except those who are officials of the state. Even including tour operators, NACON does not issue visa. What we do is to process in the sake of the state. We just do the processing. The issuance of the visa is done at the different states. So NACON is not in a position, therefore, to even cancel a visa of somebody traveling from the state. Because the way the e-portal is done, it is to give each state access to send in their programs. NACON will process it based on the payments done, and then the state is allowed to print. So we must be very clear. NACON is not in a position to issue visa for a pilgrim, cancel the visa, and give it to another person. No, that is not done. That's not the way the system works at all. The way the system works is once, like we said in the case of tour operators, once the IBAN account is open, the tour operators knows the number of seats he has. They don't process the visa at its level. NACON does not issue visa to pilgrims, except those who are officials, like medical team, like media team, like the Ulama team. Those are the only one where NACON has the responsibility of issuance of visa. The other pilgrims are done at the state level. So if there were problems, we will look into it, as I'm just hearing now, and then of course whether there is need to get relief for whoever is affected for whatever reason, which when we will look at it. But I will be surprised to say that somebody has been issued visa and then the visa is cancelled, because once we cancel it, the visa is lost. You can't give it to another person. So that's the point. But like I also would like to add that indeed, I said earlier on, because of PCR, because of BTA, a lot of flights were delayed at the different states. In addition to this, many of the states wanted the flight to emanate from their state, not from the nearest airport, but from the airport of their state. So that also took a while for the regulatory agency, the NCA, to ensure that the proper things are done, because obviously safety is the first issue. So it took a while for a number of the states too, and I don't want to mention them now, but to get their validation from the NCA, at which time the flight can then fly from their state. So indeed, all this caused a lot of delay in the flight, and by the loss of the delay of aggregate of 25, by the time we needed just 2 flights to carry all the pilgrims, the 25 delay has become obviously too costly. It was too late at the end of the day. There were other issues which I also think I would not want to put blame on others for now, but definitely we have seen that the fact that we're doing this in a hurry helped to affect our operations in no small measure. But I need to reiterate again that we do not issue visa. It is the different organ, either the state operators, who issued the visa, who actually process the visa, because the visa is issued by the authority. So once you cancel one, you have lost it. You are not going to be able to give it to another person.
Let me, just before we go on a short break, Chairman, I'm still with you. Because there was also, because questions I put to you, called from what we've heard, allegations that have been made, and pilgrims that have made various complaints. Now there's an association which goes by, which I'm sure you are aware of, the Association of Hajj and Umrah Operators. And they are saying that, their members paid a certain sum to NACON, and they're now asking NACON to refund them, probably because, most of them could not perform the holy pilgrimage. How do you respond to that?
Well, money were paid to us for engagement. And the majority of this fund, like I said, was the one we transferred to the kingdom. And in the presence of the tour operators, it was clear that NACON had no blame. Over 50 companies, the money was not transferred to their IBAN account. In front of the presence of the Senate member and House of Representative members and the media, we asked the Saudi authority, Muassasa, why was it that you did not credit this account? Was it that the money was not with you? They admitted the money was with us. Over 147 companies, 174 companies was actually involved. They were able to do all except the 53. Why? They said they also couldn't understand. It was an e-system. They tried severally. We actually sent representatives, and like I did say, we actually involved the Nigerian embassy in the kingdom in this matter when we got frustrated. And at the best, all they could say in the course of review sometime last week was that the money is here. We are willing to pay back to you. We also asked those who are there and said, gentlemen, let us know the number of people who you have already engaged with. And as I speak with you, we have started the process of refund based on the refund given to us by the Saudi authority. It was beyond us. It was in the front of all. When we asked, why was this account not credited? And they said they were able to succeed in majority. This one that were not credited, they also could not understand. Maybe they will need to investigate it later. It was in the presence of all. So what we have started, therefore, is to do the process of refund.
Chairman NACON, Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq and the two Ustaz here with us also in the studios. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I just want to remind our viewers, particularly also one of our guests here, Ustaz Ahmed Murtala Wase, because we had him join us from our Just Network Center on the day of Arafat. And incidentally, Claire and I were on set on that occasion. When we were discussing the Eid al-Kabir festivities and so on and so forth, you raised the economic perspective to the Hajj operation, to Eid al-Kabir, and what it means. We've been discussing challenges around logistics and movement, and if you may, consumption. But the spiritual aspect of it remains on the one hand, no question about that, about the value of observing one of the 5 pillars of Islam. But the reason I'm raising this economic perspective again, because you first threw up the issue. After our conversation on that day, probably about a week or two later, Al Jazeera newspaper, which is the only fiscal newspaper we had this morning to review, reported as news from Saudi that 440,000 sheep, if you may, rams, were slaughtered during the Eid al-Kabir in Saudi Arabia. And those 440,000 rams that were slaughtered, there could have been more, came from the Horn of Africa. The Horn of Africa countries, Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia.
Yes.
I just did some rough arithmetic to say, I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to laugh. Assuming a ram is 100,000 naira, and then you have 440,000, that is over 44 billion naira worth of rams leaving a part of Africa to go to Saudi for the purposes of the Eid al-Kabir festivities. And the question that then arises that, look, when you observe the value chain, because the Saudis also have to verify using vet specialists and so on and so forth that the animals were fit for purpose and so, the entire value chain.
Yes, sir.
When can we also, because yes, we're talking about tour operators and so on and so forth, but there's also that economic aspect of it.
Yes,
can we also rear our own livestock and make them suitable for this purpose? But this is for slaughtering, not for the daily feeding. Yes, well, so because you first raised that, that's why I'm putting the question back again before we get to that guest to comment.
This is interesting. I see, like you said, the spiritual aspect of Hajj should be, put on one side, and then we look at the economic impact. In 2015, after the global Millennium Development Goal, the state nations under the United Nations agreed to, have a successive program which we call the Sustainable Development Goals. Part of the Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 10.7, is focused on migration. For the first time, migration will be considered as a development issue, and there is a framework which is the Global Compact for Migration on how to unveil this, and migration benefits everyone. It's meant to be inclusive. Now, I remember in 2017, the governor of Central Bank attended program of the MDA in Lagos, and part of the recommendations he gave is that from their own research, they discovered that Nigeria can be supplying Saudi Arabia 120,000 goats monthly. 120,000 goats monthly. And he was like, this is a huge opportunity for Nigeria to tap into. He cited that in 2016, Saudi Arabia gave Namibia a slot to supply 1 million goats to Saudi Arabia.
Goats?
1 million goats to Saudi Arabia. This is for daily consumption and other purposes. And now if you look at it, the rams that were slaughtered in Saudi Arabia, that were shipped 400 plus, when you put together camels and cows, it will be up to the number of pilgrims that attended, because every pilgrim will slaughter one. So coming back to Nigeria, we have huge potential to tap on this. In our rural communities, government can come in and deliberately empower rural people to go into sheep, goats, or livestock farming in general, so that we'll be able to rear as many numbers as possible and support the economy and export it to other countries. Even though exporting this to Saudi Arabia, considering distance, that is why they consider Somalia and Namibia and Tanzania, countries closer there, because of the distance to move these things, we have to put it in ship, and the movement is going to involve a lot of costs. So when you look at the cost advantage, you would have more advantage countries closer to Saudi Arabia.
Namibia is down south.
Down south, exactly. So what we do here is, according to the data provided by MFLA, the Central Bank Governor, is that we will slaughter the rams here, put them in fridge, and we can do this. Government need to mobilize investors who are interested in this, and then through the Saudi embassy. I remember in the same years, in 2021, the Senate President put some appeal to Saudi government. Part of it is to release some of our citizens of Nigeria who are prisoners in Saudi Arabia. And in response to that, in April 2001, Al-Ghamidi, who is the ambassador of Saudi Arabia, promised to deepen our bilateral trade into agriculture. I don't know what has happened so far, whether our Ministry of Agriculture take advantage of this or not. And this is our problem. We have to be really proactive, and we have to really engage all stakeholders in our economic programs. It should be a bottom-up approach so that we'll be able to lift this country out of the woods. We talk of providing more than 100 million jobs. It is possible if the government is really deliberate on that. They are doing a lot, but we need to engage stakeholders at the grassroots to do this. Another huge opportunity of economic investment in Saudi Arabia is the knowledge economy cities. Saudi Arabia, February this year, launched the project to build 6 cities, one of which is about 8 kilometers away from the Abdullah Airport in Medina. So we were lucky to participate in the LEAD conference this year between 1st and 3rd of February. And that project is to empower developing countries in information and communication technology. Lucky for Nigeria, Nigeria is one of the 7 member countries of the Digital Cooperation Organization, which is a program powered by the Saudi government, and it's an international conference that will be done every year. And Nigeria is part of it. At the end of the program, the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Professor Pontami, disclosed that 10 startups of Nigeria were selected to be part of startups that will benefit from $600,000 US set aside by the Ministry of Communication of Saudi government. And also the Aramco venture set aside $1 billion US to support this project. So Nigerian government really need to be aggressive in taking these advantages so that we can boost take advantage of economic opportunities.
We also need to be aggressive in the area of logistics, because I don't know, Ustaz Ben Abdul, I don't know how many of our local indigenous carriers, participated in this exercise.
Only two.
Asman and then
Max Air.
And then I think that was at a time when I was at the airport in anticipation of being lifted. I was like, this is a great opportunity if we had a national carrier. It would have fetched the country a lot of money, as a lot of people were scrambling for any available aircraft that will lift them. And it's again this Hajj operation exposes another angle of our aviation industry.
Exactly.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes. It's like someone said that he was saying that we have problem in our aviation industry, but it will become manifest when we are doing our Hajj operation, and then it's became manifest when we did the Hajj operation. Then it's like we say, from now to 2023 Hajj, there should be a deliberate process put in place. What are these areas? Hajj is all about movement.
Exactly.
And I tell you, I'll share with you an experience, my experience with this 2022 Hajj. Hajj is all about movement. You just see people moving. It's about movement. You move from one location to another from your country. It's about movement. The entire activity of Hajj is about movement. It's about movement. And then the transportation system.
Yes.
I think for us that are going there and then see what is happening, it is something for us to come back home and then perfect it. I saw conservatively, I think it could be up to maybe 100,000 buses, or I don't know, luxurious buses with toilets. Those were the buses set aside to transport pilgrims. You had about 1 million people, but none was deliberately allowed to trek. With all the distances, you have numbered cars, each picking people from their respective locations. So it was impossible for you to even get lost, because you have a tag. There is no way. It's not like algorithm. There is no way you will travel with a group from Nigeria and then the transportation system will not bring you together. No matter what, they have perfected it. And then what I said is, year in, year out, they've been doing Hajj operation, and each time we go for Hajj, there is a new development. But our situation is like we are stagnant.
Okay, Ustaz, again, you responded in part and brought up fresh ideas with regard to logistics.
Yes.
Logistics and organization. I want to bring in Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq, who is a tour operator, and of course, he's been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria here in the Abuja studios, and he speaks to this. Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq, two issues on the table now. We're looking at the economics of the Hajj operation and the Arafat celebration, and what we can also do so that we don't spend our energies just worrying about what we didn't get right. Listen to what he said, and I'm sure you are still there. So take logistics, see how they're doing it. We can see buses, but we know that those buses were manufactured. We know that those buses will be maintained. We know that there are persons behind the running of those buses. And so why can't we get this things right? And particularly also in terms of supplies. I already used the example of 440,000 sheep that were supplied by some countries in the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya for this year's Hajj operation. What are the kind of lessons that we learn from this so that we come back and say, yes, we'll get our acts right in terms of the spiritual aspect, but there is also the economics of it that we need to get right against the backdrop of reports, for instance, that some of our pilgrims were treated to substandard meals.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the issue of the visa. I would address the issues that you have mentioned. We have issued visas, all tour operators and the states have issued visas to their pilgrims. Once those visas were issued, you cannot cancel those visas. You cannot cancel any visa that has been issued. And nobody can declare a visa cancelled except at the point of entry, where they would put it on the system and see whether it is cancelled or not. And the issuing authority has not cancelled any visa. So the issue of cancelling of visa should be looked at from another angle. But actually, no visas were cancelled, and nobody can declare that this visa is genuine or cancelled. But we, from our offices, have issued visas to all our pilgrims. And those visas they traveled with, except where somebody has a problem and he wants to hide under something, or he has a number of pilgrims that are ready to go, and the number of seats are not available for all, then he may declare some as being cancelled. I think that should also be very clear to this meeting. I appreciate Ustaz Jabir, Abu Jabir there in the studio, and Ustaz Ahmad talking passionately about the Hajj and about the operations of Hajj. But let me say that the issue of IBAN is different from the issue of wallet. Having money in wallet is the Umrah exercise. It's only in Umrah operations that the wallet is used. And these are two different accounts entirely. The Umrah account is different from the Hajj account. The Hajj account has more control over it because of obvious reasons. It has to be through the IBAN, and the chairman of NACON is there and has explained that part of the operation. That is as it affects the IBAN and the money going into the IBAN, and how that has caused a lot of issues, and how that has been squarely the issue within the Muassasa itself. And because of this Hajj portal issues, they were not even able to explain why those monies were not in the IBAN. On the economic side, Ustaz Ahmad has been also very forthcoming in explaining all this. And as you people there in the studio were busy looking at the number of rams or cows or camels that are slaughtered daily. I mean, during the Hajj, not daily, but during the Hajj. Of course, there is the daily aspect that you have mentioned. Hajj at peak period, you will be talking about more than 3 million pilgrims. And each one of them would have to slaughter. Of course, some pilgrims, because of the nature of the Hajj that they undertake, they may not slaughter, but the majority of the pilgrims slaughter, and some of them slaughter more than one ram. Now, you are looking at Nigeria as having a cut of the cake in this business. We have to put our house in order. Just yesterday, we were complaining about everything that the government brought about animal husbandry was viewed as land grabbing, was viewed as favoring one tribe over another, favoring another religion over another. Nigeria cannot talk about that business until we put our house in order and we see ourselves as one country. Governors were boasting, having conferences and restricting the movement of people. And when the government said, okay, we can now have branches and so on, even that was given another name. So we are not prepared to take part in this business of rams and the cows and whatever in Saudi. We are not, because we don't see that. We don't see the Fulani man. We don't see the herdsman as contributing anything to the economy of the country, let alone in export business, as Ustaz Ahmad is mentioning, and as everybody in the studio is happy alluding to the fact that Nigeria could make a lot of money out of the 3 million or so rams that are slaughtered in Hajj only. So really, we have to look inwards and do something about that. I'm not impressed at all because of what has happened in the country before this time. And when everybody was saying that, nobody brought this economic aspect into mind. We based everything on tribe and on religion and on other problems. Nobody looked at that angle. So really, Nigeria, forget it. As far as the issue of animal husbandry is concerned, unless we are able to correct that, unless we're able to see ourselves as one country, and every tribe, every religion, every region, every part able to contribute its quota to the national development of this country, then we are nowhere to be.
Ustaz Sadiq Mohammed, thank you. Let me quickly take the response of the NACON chairman, and I'm just going to say, alhamdulillah, the spiritual value of the Hajj is not lost on on all Muslims, and especially the pilgrims who performed it. Alhamdulillah, also those who could not attend this year, God willing, will probably have an opportunity next year. But what would you, NACON, what are the lessons that you have learned, and what will you be doing, to avoid the hitches and glitches, that characterize this year's Hajj?
Yeah, thank you. The first issue with in attacking this matter was when we were doing our post-Arafat meeting. 2 days after returning from Mina, we stated that Hajj 2023 has begun. So for us, we are already preparing for Hajj 2023 1 year ahead. We are saying this, that in spite of not having official news from Saudi Arabia, we now know very clearly that it was COVID-19 that has been the reason why a lot of information didn't come at the right time. So now, knowing that we have overcome COVID-19, and God willing, we are not expecting any pandemic. So for us at the National Hajj Commission, we have begun the process of Hajj 2023. In addition to that, we have also stated that those who did not participate in Hajj 2022, but were registered, they will also become our first priority, God willing, in 2023. And in addition to this, I like to join issue on this economic, because it's also very important, and I agree. And there are other areas too which we are not looking at. When you take Nigerian abroad, it does not matter how good the foreign cuisine is, it wants to eat Nigerian food. So I know that there's a large business opportunity for those who could export Nigerian food to the kingdom, particularly in the Umrah of Ramadan or Hajj season. Of course, they have to go through all the government regulation. But for me, it's a large business, because Nigerians want to eat their food wherever they are and at all times. So this is our opportunity. I also remember that we have in time past had discussion with Islamic Development Bank here in the kingdom with the way of bringing Nigerians to get involved in this sheep we're discussing. And not just even the importation of sheep into the country, it also includes that they are willing to have professional butcher. They are willing to have professional farmer. They are willing to have professional farmers. So this is our opportunity. I also remember that we have in time past had discussion with Islamic Development Bank here in the kingdom with the way of bringing Nigerians to get involved in this sheep we're discussing. And not just even the importation of sheep into the country, it also includes that they are willing to have professional butcher. Because if you have 3 million sheep, it certainly means that it has to be slaughtered by people as well. And they are saying that they are willing to get professional butchers in and give them allowances while they do their job. Of course, it also means that those who know how best to do exportation will also come into being. But of course, Saudi authority, like Nigerian government authority as well, will not just say bring it in. You must go through all the process, and I must say that they have a very stringent process that you need to follow. But still, is an opportunity for those who want to invest in the country. Apart from that, every single male will use ihram, and most time it is when we get here that we need to buy the white clothes that male uses. And I think again we can develop an industry in Nigeria, a cottage industry, where you can buy this thing at cheaper price even before you leave Nigeria. So there are a number of opportunities. Of course, like it has been mentioned, anybody who think it has capacity for aviation, of course, is also welcome into the business. Of course, but we must not forget that aviation will not just stop after Hajj. You also need to do it thereafter. So a lot of capacity is involved. It's necessary.
I'm sorry, Chairman, National Hajj Commission, NACON. I have to stop you there. We've exceeded our time. We appreciate you for joining us all the way from Mecca via Zoom. Thank you very much, Chairman. And let me also appreciate Ustaz Abubakar Sadiq Mohammed, who is the Managing Director, Congo Travels and Tours Limited, who also joined us via Zoom from Mecca. We appreciate you. And back here in the studio, Ustaz Abu Jabri Abdullah Penabo. Thank you. Yeah. And we have Ustaz Ahmed Mutala Wase, Director of Research. Mi'raj Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us. All right,
so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. To enjoy your weekend, join us again on Monday, 7 o'clock in the morning for a fresh edition of the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Adilabo Abdul-Razak, and to all you Muslims out there, Juma Mubarak.